the end of the day, people follow people. And so you want to have those executive thought leaders posting on a steady cadence. And I've seen the tremendous impact it makes. And even if people aren't engaging with your post, they may not be liking it, they may not be commenting, they're seeing it, they're remembering it, and they will reach out to you when the timing is right.
Hello, and welcome back to the Supreme Pod, where we talk about all things marketing and communications for life, science, and healthcare. Today's episode is all about thought leadership in marketing and communications, specifically in health tech and digital health. And for this conversation, I am joined by Jodi Amendola, who is the president of Amendola Communications. Jodi has 30 plus years experience in public relations, specifically in health tech and digital health. She is a regular Forbes Council contributor and Becker's Top 100 Women in HIT. Jodi is also one of the best pickleball players I've ever played with in my entire life. So Jodi, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to talk to you.
You are the best, Eric. I don't think you played pickleball with many people then, no. But we definitely had fun, and I can't wait to play again.
So let's talk about thought leadership. I talked to you a couple weeks ago, and I was asking you, what is everybody asking you for? Because I mean, you've been doing marketing communications for 30 years, health tech, digital health. And I'm like, what's the number one thing people are always asking for your help with? And you said thought leadership. And I think thought leadership has always been a big part of PR, but it's just changed, and now it's kind of different. It's more like getting on LinkedIn. I mean, kind of what we're doing right now, right? That's kind of like the meta analysis of it. But how would you sort of define thought leadership in health tech, digital health right now?
Let me just start by saying that thought leadership is something that every client I've ever had, I think, wants. Even if they want a lead gen or integrated program, PR and thought leadership is something that has really endured the test of time through the 33 years that I've been in business. Because what thought leadership can do for a company is create awareness and authority and really make a company stand out in a crowded marketplace. So even companies that are really small that want to look big, or a big company that's big but wants to look like the biggest or the leader in the space, can do so with an effective thought leadership program. So especially for smaller companies where it's really hard to compete because they don't have the large dollars that a big organization has, and it's hard to go head to head, with a well thought out and well executed thought leadership program, a company of any size can control the narrative, can control the perception, and gain a competitive advantage. So you're right. Thought leadership has changed in that we have new ways to build thought leadership by leveraging LinkedIn, by doing podcasts. We didn't have those 20 years ago, but we do now. And they're still part of what we've always done that's tried and true, like thought leadership interviews with industry influencers, interviews with industry analysts, and then, of course, like thought leadership articles, blogs, op-eds, all of those kinds of things.
I know you mentioned that thought leadership has changed a lot over the last few years. So today, what do you think some of the steps are that make up a really good thought leadership program?
Yeah. So regardless of whether it's today or yesterday, you have to start with the basics. You have to have that foundational messaging that makes your company unique and that you build that strategy around your thought leadership. So you want to focus on the organizational, the vision for your industry and the challenges and the pain points that your company solves for your customers and your prospects. And then you want to tie that messaging to what's going on in the news. But the key with thought leadership is that you can't be promotional. You want to weave your messaging into those topics and the thought leadership, but you want to be educational and informative rather than, an ad for your company, because nobody's really interested in that. And some of the key things with thought leadership is really being provocative, being edgy, not just saying the same old thing. So you want to draw attention, right? And then you also want to have a steady cadence. So it's really important whether you're, whatever your point of view is, and especially if you can be controversial or edgy or a little provocative, you want to be bold. And then the trick is to have a variety of content and consistency, really, to kind of be out there, repackage, repurpose the content in multiple ways. To your point, podcasts, LinkedIn, op-eds, Even a white paper or an ebook can be refashioned and then promoted on social, for example. But really, it's getting your viewpoint out there and it's repetition. So when companies, prospects see the same messaging everywhere, they're far more likely to believe it, adopt it, and buy it.
Hmm. So I really want to talk about the whole hot take aspect of this, the controversial one, because I find that so interesting to be providing a service for a company and you say, don't do the safe thing, you know? I think I'll actually give an example for my personal thought leadership, though I don't really consider myself to be a thought leader. But I was thinking this morning of a real hot take in life science marketing. That's more my expertise. And
Okay.
it was LinkedIn is better than trade shows for life science marketers. And here's why. If you spend money on your hotels, your dinners, the booth, the 8 people who are there, their flights, everything like that, we're talking $50 to $100,000. With $50 to $100,000, I could probably get you 500 to 1,000 leads on LinkedIn. And so I think the hot take is, and it's almost like I want someone to prove me wrong with data. LinkedIn is better than trade shows, dollar for your marketing dollar. So, I mean,
Right.
that's something for me where I'm kind of like, an expert in LinkedIn ads. I've been doing that for 10 years, maybe
Sure.
8 years. And
Yeah.
I can generate that hot take, and I'm comfortable with a hot take. Is it a challenge for you sometimes to sort of develop that hot take with some of your clients? And then do you have any, I don't know, how do you come up with these angles? Because I feel like, do clients usually want to play it safe, or do they like intuitively sort of understand this type of thing?
So I'm not saying that playing it safe is bad or wrong and that you can't build thought leadership. But if you want to, get there a little quicker and really stand out, then being a little edgy or provocative can go a long way. But certainly, if you just stick to the tried and true, we have that magic formula for success. But it really is, you can't just expect to do one interview, one podcast, send out LinkedIn posts haphazardly and become a thought leadership. There has to be a thoughtful strategy behind it. And you can't be self promotional and you have to have that steady cadence once you follow those best practices. And we do a lot on LinkedIn. So I do think you're right. LinkedIn is a huge part of it. You're coming at it from the paid LinkedIn. I'm coming at it from the organic, which is typically a little more credible because we provide research articles and throw a point of view on it, right? We comment on articles that are already out there, or we come up with posts that are educational. Again, sure, there's going to be some promotional, but we try to follow the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the content that we post on social is informative, it's educational, and 20% can be about your company. Yes, I'm going to be at this trade show, or I'm going to be doing this webinar, that kind of thing.
Do you mind just defining what the 80-20 rule is when it comes to health tech PR? And is this something that you use all the time, non-negotiable type strategy?
That's more for LinkedIn, the 80-20 rule, because that's where we're actually promoting specific things. So 20% would be a company's conferences, a webinar, new employees or employee promotions, things that are very specific to the company and their activities. It's a great place to promote and share the PR thought leadership that we generate. So if we get a placement, we can then promote it. We get a podcast interview, we can then promote it. That's all part of that 20% of self-serving storylines about the company specifically versus the 80% that is true thought leadership, honing in on industry research, industry trends, industry data, or industry articles and giving a perspective, a point of view. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense. It is such a good nugget. I've heard the 80-20 rule before, mostly in regard to efficiency, but 80-20, 80% education and 20%
Mhm.
promotional is such a good rule. And that's sort of my role with marketing as well. For me, almost every single piece either has to be educational or proof. That's the other option, right? So if you won an award for them or they were featured in like you've won a lot of awards. You have to prove to people that you know what you're talking about or that you
Mhm.
can provide some
Yeah.
value. You can only do it two ways, education or proof. So I love that nugget. I'm so glad to hear that you guys do that.
Also with LinkedIn, the algorithms keep changing. So what worked for you today may not work for you in a month from now. So you really need to keep up with that. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, a couple months ago, the best practice was incorporating 5 hashtags. Now, hashtags not so much. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of need to be aware of those things as well.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And so, who's normally the people at the organizations that you work with that want to be thought leaders? And do you recommend, like, is it always the CEO? Is it sometimes like a chief scientist, scientific officer, something like that, like a CSO? Like, who's normally the best thought leader and who's usually the most interested when you talk to these people?
Yeah, so that's a tough question because the CEO definitely needs to be front and center and typically wants to be, but there are some companies where the CEO is shy. And so we need to make sure that he's appropriately media trained. But if a CEO or another thought leader doesn't feel comfortable, then you don't want to throw them out there because that's not going to be a good experience for anybody. But it really also depends. Remember, just like what you do when you buy ads, what we do in PR is everything has to be targeted. So when you're reaching a specific audience, you want to communicate appropriately to that audience. So, for example, if there's a podcast and they have a CMIO host, we want the guest from the client to be a CMIO for the client company, right? To engage in that peer to peer conversation. So, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. There can be multiple executives that we build thought leadership around, especially, for example, if you're selling to a tech audience, then you may want a CIO. If there's a financial story, then you'll probably want a CFO. If there's a clinical story, then you want, a nurse leader or a physician leader. So what we do is we come up with the different topics that each C-level suite executive can speak to and promote their thought leadership to appropriate audiences.
That makes complete sense. I mean, we do that too, right? Like if somebody wants to talk about ads, we send the ads person. If someone wants to talk about PR, we send the PR person.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that makes complete sense. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. Let's say my CEO wants to be a thought leader. What should
Mhm.
we do?
Well, we should interview him. And first of all, we have to make sure again that that foundational messaging is there. Then, and we just did this last week. We onboarded a new client. We're really focusing on one C-level executive. So we interviewed him and we wanted to understand what his, background on the company first, but then what are his viewpoints? Where is the industry going? What are his clients' pain points? And then there's some new legislation coming out in early next year. What are his thoughts on that? What can people do to prepare for that? What are the key steps? So understanding all that. And from that, we can then start writing our media pitches and very customized, depending again on the publication, the outlet, the podcaster, and then start getting them into the news. So what we do is we follow Simon Sinek. What is your why? And then once you have your why, then we focus on the what and the how. But typically the why tries to solve those pain points that are most appropriate for the prospects. And again, in a non-promotional way.
I love that. And so is that really sort of step one in your process is like actually sitting down? It's like the strategy.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. We have a strategic onboarding session with typically multiple stakeholders, and then we do one-on-one interviews with each stakeholder, each thought leader, because everybody has their own viewpoint, everybody has their own style. Some people are humorous when they talk, some people are very serious, some people want facts. So we have to understand their perspective, where they're coming from. Are they academic? Are they, serious? It just, everybody's a little different.
Do you think some PR agencies skip that step?
Not if they're good. I don't know. I think it would be hard, to be out there and not have a good understanding of the actual thought leaders, because you want that clarity and you want to gain that authority. And how could you do that if you don't understand, their uniqueness?
I've experienced this on the Google ad side. It might be like more of a budget PR where it's like, oh, we're going to publish it on Business Wire. And they have like their sort of back pocket contents of just like stuff like podcasts that no one listens to, not real opportunities, not real things in the space, you know?
Yeah, we call those like low hanging fruit, low value versus high value targeted opportunities.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest, everybody wants to be in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, right? That hasn't changed either.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to have the story, right? In our world, it's all about storytelling, but you have to have the fundamentals first.
So let's talk about storytelling. What do you think the hardest part about doing really good PR and comms for health tech, digital health is? I mean, is it crafting that story? Is it finding a good thought leader? Is it getting the placements? I mean, there's so much that goes on. Like, what, in your opinion, is the most difficult part?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's all of the above. So typically getting to the story is not difficult for us because this is what we do. We live and breathe in this space and we understand and we know how to probe and get those answers. Sometimes it is hard because a thought leader is only thinking about their own particular product. And that's really hard. Nobody wants to hear that infomercial. Nobody cares. It's what is the bigger problem? What are we trying to solve? Whether it's for a hospital and health system, if it's for a life science company, it doesn't matter. We need to understand what are the overall arching themes and issues that we want to talk about and be broad. That's where thought leadership comes in, being able to be broad and go deep on, multiple topics, not just one very narrow focused product.
What sort of tactics and channels would you use as a part of a strong thought leadership program?
Oh gosh, there's lots of things. So, being in the media is important. So we want to, focus on the trade media that your prospects are reading very closely by, securing interviews, Q&As, other opportunities. Then we want to reach the national business media if that's appropriate. The industry analysts, because they're in a position to write reports and maybe it's just a meet and greet or whatever, but we want them to know you because they can also refer business. Social media, like you mentioned, LinkedIn is where it's at for sure. And then we also want to apply for awards because that exudes credibility. And then speaking opportunities for the thought leader or speaking opportunities for the client champions. All of that works together. And then you can also incorporate the marketing pieces. So like I mentioned before, white papers, ebooks, infographics, all of those can be used as part of your thought leadership program. You can very often take a white paper that's maybe 4 to 6 pages and parse that out into blog posts, parse that out into thought leadership articles that you then place in the media. Once it's published in the media, you have that link, that halo effect that you can then take and use for your lead gen campaigns, push it out on LinkedIn. So again, repurpose, repackage, leverage all of that content over and over for that repetition to get you that thought leadership.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. I mean, you're speaking sort of the CMO's dream over here of all the stuff that you should
Mhm.
be doing. And
Yes.
so one of the things you mentioned earlier in when we were talking is it's good to have some controversial takes. And so I'm going to put you on the spot because I want to hear a controversial take from you. And so I'm wondering, what do you think some of the biggest mistakes you are seeing in the health tech space as they chase, sort of thought leadership?
Yeah, I think people get really hell bent on like one competitor. And so sometimes it's about really knocking that one competitor versus showcasing how you're different, how you're changing the market. Again, the positive things that you're doing versus bashing somebody else.
I see that all the time on the advertising side of things too. It's crazy. You will show a client, hey, we've achieved, 500% return on ad spend. Your campaigns are limited by budget. It's basically free money if we increase a little bit more. And they're like, we don't really have it on the budget. And then I'm like, your biggest competitor is spending double. And they suddenly find all this money. It's people are so concerned on their competitors. I'm not exaggerating at all when I tell you people care on at least on the ad side, and it sounds like PR as well. They care so much more
And it's
about what
usually
their competitors are doing.
only one company that's really like their thorn in their throat. But honestly, if a company can leverage their end users, their clients to tell their story, that's going to be so much more impactful than any negative talk you can do about your competitors. Right? I
Yep.
mean, because then you have that third party validation. So I always say the best way to build thought leadership by far, and healthcare is a very peer to peer industry, is to have your clients, give their real world examples, use case studies, use testimonials, videotape them, have them write articles, whatever, put them in front of the media. That will help go so much further.
That was really interesting to hear. I think what I want to do is continue the hot takes. Do you think there's any best practices, like things that maybe were really important 10 years ago that are actually outdated or even maybe harmful today? Or do you think that it's all just kind of an evolution?
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything bad the way things were done. I think there's just more opportunities now because we have more media outlets, right? We have podcasts now. So that's huge, right? There's so many opportunities to get on a podcast. And those are great because people don't have the attention span to read an 8-page white paper. They would much rather go for a jog and listen to your podcast, which is, 20, 30 minutes. And it's informative. Plus, people like to see videos, the short snippets or an infographic, short snippets, but they can just identify with that real world data. So I think it's not that there's anything negative from before. I think there's just more opportunities now. And like I said, LinkedIn, you have the opportunity. You can post every day, or you can post, something high value 2 or 3 times a week and really position yourself as a thought leader. It's a two-pronged approach, right? Because your company can do it, but at the end of the day, people follow people. And so you want to have those executive thought leaders posting on a steady cadence. And I've seen the tremendous impact it makes. And even if people, what I found, aren't engaging with your post, they may not be liking it, they may not be commenting, they're seeing it, they're remembering it, and they will reach out to you when the timing is right. It happens to me all the time. So, and especially if you're a thought leader, you got to be out there. You
Yes.
can't be shy. You cannot be shy.
I think you're a great practice what you preach type person. And I believe in this a lot when it comes to selecting an agency that you might work with. I personally think that Supreme Optimization, I think we have some of the best ads in the world. We have funnels, we're tofu, we're mofu, we're bofu, we're retargeting. If you watch 50% of one video, you get put into another funnel where you can download an ebook. You download the ebook, you get put in another funnel. It's like,
Awesome.
and then when companies want to work with us, they know we have it because we do it ourselves. And I actually think you're a good example of this because I think you're posting all the time. My favorite posts of yours are the pickleball posts. We all know that,
I got
but
another one coming.
yes, can't wait. And so I think I actually look forward to your posts because they're either educational or they're interesting and they're very human. And so I think this isn't really a question, but it's just a comment. Like, I think that you do a good job of practicing what you preach,
Well, thank you for that. And I do agree with the human because very often, like when I was just at the trade show, I saw people and they start asking me things like, how was your daughter? Oh my God, I loved your trip to Europe. Like people remember things that I post. I do get a little personal sometimes, but it does, if you want to build your thought leadership, it's nice to show that human component. And then I just want to give a shout out to you as well. The lead gen is insane. I was just telling somebody this the other day when they were asking me about, what's going on with this prospect. And I'm like, who? I could not even remember the name of the company because when I was just at Amendola, I knew every single prospect I was talking to. But now there are so many leads coming at me every single day because of your magic that there's no way I can remember everybody, regardless, even if I'm doing proposals and sending out SOWs all the time. It's just it's overwhelming how much. So definitely doing something right.
Would you say that health tech is like if you could just pick one word, is it health tech for Amendola?
Definitely. Health tech has been our community it used to be called health IT. Now it's health tech, sometimes digital tech, but that's the world we live in for sure. And we're all passionate about and just, kind of know everybody. It's an awesome, close-knit community.
Do you think health tech companies are good at PR thought leadership compared to maybe some other industries?
Well, I think the ones that engage with the PR program absolutely are pretty good because boy, it's a tough market. And there are also a ton of competitors. So for example, if you're an EHR company or a rev cycle company, there may be 200 to 500 other companies that are in your same space. So you better do something to stand out in that crowd. It's not easy. And usually, in addition to PR and thought leadership, it's really part of an overall integrated program that gets you the best results, no doubt.
So is there any other like sort of subsets of health tech in there?
There's technology that runs hospitals. There's technology that runs physician groups. There's technology that runs employers. And then there's patient technology. There's so many layers. So it would be hard.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. How do you know if a particular narrative or story is the right one in health tech?
That's a great question. I think just by doing this, it's just a gut instinct of what's going to resonate and what's not. Again, we typically work with about 50 to 50 clients at any given time. So we're very privy to what's going on in the industry. So, for example, like when AI became hot, for companies that aren't positioning themselves as a tech forward rev cycle company, they're going to be missing out because if you're not using AI, you're going to fall behind. It's really almost table stakes now, but that has to be part of your overall messaging.
What was the last narrative before AI? I'm just curious. Is it hard to remember a life before AI? I hardly do at this point now.
Honestly, it really was. I mean, people said, well, I mean, the claim to fame always in healthcare is better patient outcomes at reduced costs. So now with AI, it's more about faster, but also improving patient outcomes and reducing costs. I mean, that's the goals. But AI for sure is a game changer in all industries, right?
Yep.
It's crazy.
So I think there's a strong trend. I'm going to actually speak a little bit from a life science perspective because, that's sort of like my background. Life science companies are very slow to adopt digital marketing. I think they started doing Google ads probably 10 years after, a traditional like B2C company.
Mhm.
LinkedIn, now it's pretty popular, but again, they were probably 5 years a little late to the game compared to other B2B industries.
Mhm.
So, would you say that health tech companies are embracing regularly posting on LinkedIn at this point in time in terms of that specific aspect of the thought leadership? Or do you think they're more like lagging?
So it's funny you say that about life science companies. So, I mean, I've been in this industry for so long, and healthcare has always lagged behind other industries, behind retail, behind financing, behind banking. It's been very frustrating through the years, especially because we're in the technology side of healthcare, and that's traditionally always lagged behind. But in terms of LinkedIn, companies are either on LinkedIn or want a LinkedIn presence because they understand that their buyers or the influencers that influence the buyers are on LinkedIn. So absolutely, social media is a key part of everybody's programs today. In fact, that's a really good point because earlier you asked me what has changed about thought leadership. And I would say 5 years ago, it used to be I would sell a PR program or a PR program plus a content marketing program. Now, LinkedIn is, I would say, 90% of every one of my PR retainer programs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it the primary thing, or is it like one of the primary things that people care about at this point?
It's a very important aspect. So media relations is, still number one because they want to be out there front and center on podcasts and interviews and in print. But LinkedIn is right up there as almost part of that process. The only reason why some people opt not to engage us for their LinkedIn program is because they have the internal infrastructure to do it. They have a person trained or a person hired or a few people because it's not only about the posts, it's also about the graphics, it's about the thought leadership, and it's about the strategy and the steady cadence. But yeah, I do think it's pretty important today and people do recognize that.
So, on this topic, so curious of your thoughts on this because I think this is actually the hardest thing about LinkedIn thought leadership is how do you make sure that some of the thought leadership content is delivering value and that it's authentic within
Mm,
the health tech space?
great question. So we use Sprout Social to actually monitor our accounts and how they're performing. But we also solicit feedback from our clients because we want to understand. Because a lot of times when we start engaging in a thought leadership program on social, we get feedback pretty quickly like, oh my gosh, people are noticing us, they're seeing us, they're valuing us. But if they don't tell us specifically about specific posts, we have no way of really knowing. But I can tell you, we're pretty good at understanding what's thought leadership and what's self promotional. So again, going back to that onboarding, that due diligence, where we come up with the key topics, we try to stick to most of those topics for our thought leadership pieces, and then weave in other stuff that comes up.
Who are the main audiences with a lot of these health tech companies you work with?
Yeah. So our primary audience that we serve are that our clients serve are hospitals and health networks. Second would be payer organizations. And then third would probably be provider groups.
When you say hospitals and healthcare systems, who would be the ideal person for, your client to reach? Is it like a CEO of a hospital system? Is it like more on the admin side?
Usually it's a C-suite. So it's usually a CEO, COO, or CFO, or CIO. But again, there are influencers that influence the buying decisions. So it could be a CNO, Chief Nursing Officer, a chief medical officer, or even director of nursing or VP. There's also the chief innovation officers now. Those are pretty influential. There's chief AI folks. So it really runs the gamut. And again, it depends on our clients, their product, and who they're selling to. We have clients that, have different sectors within health IT or digital health.
So how important is newsjacking? This is, by the way, a new term that I learned a couple weeks ago. PR isn't like my central skill set, I would say, when it comes to marketing. So I love the term. It sounds very diabolical for such a, for the PR industry. I wish we had a comparable sounding word in the Google ad side of things. But so how important is newsjacking with your thought leadership programs within the health tech space?
Newsjacking is critical to strong thought leadership. It's awesome. I mean, remember, thought leadership doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's contextual based. So what's going on in the world and the news cycle is so relevant. And if we can jump on something quickly, like, the hot news of the day, whether it's like a regulatory change or some challenge that's facing health systems or payers, and then put our client out there, our client thought leader out there to, offer up their commentary, their viewpoint, their guidance on what's going on. It's amazing. I mean, it's amazing how much that can help move the dial in terms of their thought leadership.
So if there's somebody who works in health tech who has absolutely no idea where to start when they're trying to start a thought leadership program or just get marked up on LinkedIn, is the simplest, most effective way to do that just, why don't you take what everybody's talking about already, what's really going on in the news? I mean, that's what newsjacking is, right? It's like, what are we all talking about in the industry? And then give your spin, give your take, that type of thing.
But with newsjacking, it's something that's happening real time live. So for example, if there's a hurricane and all of a sudden the systems go down in a hospital, it may be a thought leader talking about, how do you get your backup data up real quickly, or, just kind of giving, again, advice on what's going on.
Like an educational, what you can do in the situation.
Yeah.
How do you think things changed in the world of AI? How do you see thought leadership programs changing in the future? And how does AI influence that in the health tech space?
Let me ask ChatGPT. Let's ask it after we're done. So, I mean, for us, remember, we focus on the editorial side. So AI is great for getting our minds thinking, doing the research, great for meeting notes, great for creative brainstorming. But what we write, we cannot plagiarize. So editorial will just strike it down right away. So we are very strong believers of human in the loop. I mean, that is our secret weapon, is the brains of our experienced team members. We have very experienced writers and journalists who have backgrounds. That's all they do is write for healthcare, health tech. And so, they don't hallucinate like AI does. So it's really important to maintain that human.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I think they say junior level jobs are down 23% in this year, and senior levels are up 17%. And so the AI, yeah,
Okay.
This is in tech. So I think AI has a real use case in super specific things. Like, for example, writing code. That is something right now, ChatGPT is probably equal to a second to fourth year developer, but they can't push that live. They need someone to review it who's a senior. So pretty interesting. I don't know what the world looks like when they start taking all the senior level jobs, but hopefully we're a ways off from that.
Hopefully we're retired by then, right, Eric?
I know, right? I know. That's the goal. That's the goal. So what are the biggest like kind of trends you're seeing in health tech right now? What does everybody want when it comes to marketing and thought leadership in health tech, would you say?
What does everybody want? Everybody wants to fuel the sales pipeline. That's honestly at the end of the day, yes, generating awareness is important, but what you do is probably the most important thing. I hate to say it, but leads, leads,
No, that's
leads.
the best answer.
It's been a really tough market, really tough market. It's been a very cautious market this year. And people need sales. I mean, I have one client who has been with us for 7 years and they sell to payer organizations and their sales cycle is 1 year. Well, now it's 2 years because everything has just been delayed. And so it's tough.
Yeah, that is super tough. I think the comment I'll make, because you were very kind in saying like, oh, the work that you do in terms of, I do a lot of paid
Sure.
advertising,
Yeah,
and I feel like paid advertising plus PR is the ultimate 1 + 1 = 3.
that's the dream.
It
Agree.
is.
Percent. And that's how my clients, that fully integrated program, that's the magic.
Yeah, there's like, an old verbiage of if a tree falls in the middle of the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? And so I'd
Mhm.
say, you know, if you win an award and no one is around to hear it, did you actually win an
When
award?
I love
Yeah.
that. That's so
So,
funny. Okay, but let me give you my little spiel though. I will say, um, why I think PR will stand the test of time and continue to stand the test of time is that it is limitless. So what I love about PR is you can have one topic, change the angle a little bit and pitch it to like 15 different media outlets, right?
mhm,
You can send out a press release and it's not about just getting one placement. You can get 300 placements. So for the same dollar, that's
right.
where I think the difference is between paid and not paid. However, with paid, you know exactly what you're going to get and you can measure it. PR, you can. So, there's pros and cons of both.
Yeah. I think, like you described, it's like sometimes with PR, something you do is almost, it's like hard to measure the value of it. It can, there's things where it can lead to triple a company size or whatever, just that one kind of like break or momentum shift in the market. And I think the thing that I love about PR as a paid person is, now when we get, like we talked about this earlier with the 80/20, and so I think the 80% of stuff that you post as a thought leader has to either have proof or educational. And if you win an award, there's proof. That's your post right there. You don't even need anything else. We don't need to write a long form post or have an interview discussing how you do this or how you do that, because
Mhm.
somebody else has already declared you are the best at health tech marketing, you are the best at rare disease
Right.
marketing, whatever it is. So
Right.
I love PR. I love it. It's so good. Give me all the awards. Put me everywhere. Put me in Forbes, because I will broadcast it. And so the whole thing is like, if you win an award and no one is around to boost the post, did you win an award? Well, with paid ads, you just boost the post. So awesome, Jodi. Well, it was amazing talking to you. Thank you so much. I love just always hanging out with you, talking with you, always learn so much about the PR and communication side of things. And yeah, just really appreciate your time.
It was great to talk to you as well, Eric. Thank you so much. Loved it.
All right,
I
Jodi.
want to come back again and talk about something else.
Yes, let's do it in a couple months for sure.
Okay.
Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Jodi.